So, hello everyone, and welcome to this YouTube channel of Awakening Stories, where people share their stories of awakening, and we also discuss topics all around these experiences. And I'm very happy to welcome Brent today. Welcome.
Thank you, Catherine. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so maybe start by sharing a little bit what your work is, because we connected actually through James, um, who I was interviewing, and then I saw that you interviewed him as well. And then I came across your YouTube channel, which is also about all these topics. So talk a little bit about your work and yeah, how you approach these very interesting topics.
Yeah, thank you. I think we have very, very similar missions. My aim is to raise awareness and offer support for people going through Kundalini Shakti awakening, or spiritual awakening, or spiritual crises, or spiritual emergency. So many different terms. I see it all as, I see all these terms as, describing one overarching process of spiritual transformation that can be very difficult, very challenging, frightening, uncomfortable, unusual, non-ordinary. And so I think there's great value in having conversations about it, offering support from experience, sharing resources and whatnot. So my work centers around those themes. Um, I just interviewed you, Catherine, on my podcast, the Spiritual Awakening Show and YouTube channel. So for those that would like to tune in and to listen to Catherine share beautifully about her Kundalini awakening journey, you're welcome to. And so that's my aim. I host conversations for support. I do Q&As. I give the community a chance to share as well. I think there's great healing in being seen and being heard and being able to tell your story without being judged, criticized, labeled. And so those are some of the things that I offer. I also support people individually with Kundalini Awakening. And I also run a website called kundaliniawareness.org, where I have a directory of licensed mental health professionals with Kundalini Awakening experience from around the world, there to support people in a valid way that are looking for support from somebody who understands. So you can check all of that out.
Yeah, I
Thanks for
will
giving me
put
the
it
chance.
in the link below, all the or in the comment below, so that we have all these links where people can find you and the work you're doing and where they can get help. But I think especially the Q&As, they are so valuable. So I encourage people to look that up. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mhm. Yeah, so let's then start with you just telling a little bit about your experience, and you can start wherever you think is important, and then we go from there.
Yeah, thank you. So I've told my story a few times here and there, and I always try and come at it from a different angle and whatnot, which is fresh for me as well. I sometimes see different themes in my own story as I tell it. So we'll see what comes out this time. Um, for me as a teenager, I was depressed, I was anxious. I had abandoned any sense of religion, and I had no spirituality. And I heard about this thing called meditation. Science was saying it can be effective for, managing anxiety and depression. So I sat to meditate, and suddenly my spine began to move, my neck began to move on its own. I felt I must be possessed or something, but I just let it go. I didn't really make much of it. I just opened my eyes, stopped meditating, and went on with my life. So that was my first encounter with a spiritual practice, though I wasn't practicing meditation with any spiritual intention. And that was my first encounter with some non-ordinary phenomena of a spiritual emergence process beginning, an awakening process beginning. The depression, really gave me fuel to seek answers, to seek relief. And naturally, as many of us listening will know, and I know Catherine, you share as well, when we begin to seek in a deep way, not as a casual seeker, but in a really deep way, looking for truth, relief, peace, love. What is God? What are we here? What is reality? When we start asking those questions in a very valid way, answers start to come. We can't put it aside. And so it basically consumed my life since I was 15. And so my whole life since then has just been about this journey, this process. I began to practice a lot of mindfulness meditation, being in the moment. I didn't sit to meditate much because I felt like whenever I would try, it was just too intense or too much, or I didn't know how. And so I didn't really sit. And eventually I learned how to sit and practice Vipassana meditation. I went to a course with Goenka, that's taught by Goenka, a 10-day silent meditation course. And so I began to practice really intensely. 2012, I heard the world was going to end. For whatever reason, I felt this might happen. And my only chance of not being left behind in whatever that meant was I have to practice really intense spiritual practice. And so I just meditated and inquired, what is true? What is true? Who am I? I sat to meditate very intensely, and eventually I experienced an opening energetically in the top of my head, where it seemed like the entire universe poured into my head in a sense. And it was just this vastness. And I felt almost extremely detached from my body in this vast, spacious awareness. And I knew this was spiritual, but it was extremely uncomfortable. There was no way I could put words to describe this experience. I had no sense of connection with my body whatsoever. And so I was walking around almost like I was paper thin. I couldn't feel, it was like I weighed as light as a feather. And I was watching from, I was almost like, 1,000 miles away, extremely disconnected. The language I would use now is, I was depersonalized, derealized. I was stuck in emptiness, stuck in the void. I was stuck in witnessing consciousness. I was ungrounded, dissociated. But I knew there was a spiritual theme here because this seemed to be what people were speaking about in Neo-Advaita, non-duality. I
Mm.
was reading Zen Buddhism, talking about emptiness, and I said, yes, this is my experience in the moment, but I don't feel comfortable. I'm actually kind of scared because I don't know if I can actually live like this. And so I began to search for somebody to help, somebody to guide me, somebody to tell me what's going on and how to get comfortable again. And everywhere I went, nobody could really help. I talked to my professor in university. She was teaching us Buddhism. I figured she's got to know, right? Teaching us Buddhism. She said, I don't practice Buddhism. I just teach it as a scholar. So I
Interesting.
felt really betrayed, and it was dead end after dead end. I went to yoga teachers, and they didn't know. It was just dead end after dead end. Eventually, through the flow, through synchronicity, I began to get some insights, and I learned that this was an experience that sometimes those who meditate very intensely may have. They call it emptiness sickness or meditation sickness. This is some terms. Zen sickness is also a term. And so I said, okay, I'm on the map here in some way. This is a known thing. What are some of the solutions? And the solutions were, of course, bringing awareness into the body, focusing on the body. So I began to practice yoga. I started lifting some heavy weights. I was eating a vegan diet at the time. I thought that would be best for my spirituality. So I began to eat a little bit of meat and I began to ground myself, spend some time in nature. Found that I was able to get back in my body and yet still had access to this incredible spaciousness that had awakened during that experience. So I had this ability to go into witnessing state and become detached, which was nice. And so I kind of hung out there for a few years, but still didn't feel complete. There was something missing, and I found my heart began to yearn for a taste of spirituality as well. It seemed like my head got a big dose of spiritual awakening, but my heart said, what about me? And this brought like sadness. It brought like a melancholy. It brought like a yearning. It was warm in my heart, and I kind of got all gooey, and there was a deep longing for God. So I felt now that this was the awakening of the heart. Around this time, my spine began to move some more on its own, but I didn't fight it. I wasn't afraid. It was like that phenomena returned. And I would just let it move in my bed. I would meditate lying down, very casual, hands on my heart, and my spine would dance and move. And innocently, I didn't even question what this was. I didn't know. Now I can say it's Kundalini phenomena. It's the awakening of Shakti. She's moving through my spine. But at the time, I was so innocent, it completely bypassed my intellectual mind that wanted to label any of this. I had no interest in that. I encountered psychedelics, and that also threw some more fuel on the fire here. I found, devotional teachings, bhakti teachings. I was reading poetry of Rumi. I was interested in romance. I connected with somebody through synchronicity, and we had a great spiritual connection that was supercharged, but very short-lived and very, very intense, that amplified all this energy in my body some more. Eventually, I explored magic mushrooms. I was engaging in my spiritual practice at the time, which was just in a very intense practice of self-love. And I put my hands in my heart and say to myself, every cell, every atom in my body, every part of my energy field, my psyche, my memory, my inner child, everything, I would just say, I love you. I see you. I'm with you. I love you. And I did this extremely intensely, with incredible focus, incredible concentration. And this was my practice when I was sober. But then on this experience of magic mushrooms, I of course went to my practice, and it was amplified, a million times. And in this state, eyes closed, I experienced this massive explosion of what I would describe as like a bullet train, something the size of a bullet train, moving at the speed of light, exploded through the shaft in my spinal column, all the way up to the top of my head and out. And it was incredibly orgasmic and profound and transcendent. And there was a sexual element, there was a spiritual element, there was an element of love, an emotional element. There was a physical component where my spine was like a whip that, like, had like a sonic boom with the speed at which it like whipped in this movement. And I found myself in this extremely expansive void of infinite nothingness, everythingness, love. You can't describe it. Anyway, when I came back into my body, I was like, whoa, what was that? I didn't know. Um, Following that, there was an extreme feeling of oneness with everything in the room. I was one with the walls, with everything, one with, the other people that were present. And it was just this incredible state of oneness. By the next day, that it all slowly started to disappear. And I began to feel extremely anxious, uncomfortable, sick. My relationship fell apart before my eyes, this really intense relationship. And I just descended into a really, really uncomfortable and dark place.
Mm.
And this began a period of intense, you could say purging, purification, dark night of the soul. I'll pause there and see what comes up for you, Catherine.
You know what comes up for me very intensely at the moment? It's like it's a beautiful experience, and maybe people who hear your story, when they hear my story afterwards, it's incredible the similar way this unfolds and the same words we are using. So very, very interesting. And I also see that when it comes with this force, like in yours, like this extreme orgasmic experience, that immediately afterwards you fall into this dark night of the soul, where for me, because I was holding back the process, it unfolded slower but the same. So it's very interesting to hear that. And yeah, so who was present the moment when that happened, and how did you integrate? that
Mm.
whole experience afterwards. You weren't aware that it was Kundalini that moment.
Yeah, which was so interesting because at that time in my spiritual journey, I was only listening to teachers that had a Kundalini awakening. I just didn't know. I
Yeah.
was some of them were even speaking about Shakti, and it was completely bypassing my intellectual mind. It
Mm,
was like when I would listen to those teachers on YouTube, for example, I would just go into a trance state, and none of what they were saying was registering to me. I knew about Kundalini,
mm,
and yet when I had this seemingly classical Kundalini awakening experience of energy moving up the spine, I had no idea that that's what it was, which was so interesting. So for the next 2 weeks, I didn't know what was happening to me. I was crying, anxious, vomiting. I felt so unstable on all these levels, and I didn't know that this was Kundalini until a friend of mine said, "Hey, Brent, I was just listening to a talk by Ram Dass. The talk is called The Promises and Pitfalls of the Spiritual Awakening Path, I believe." And she says, he describes Kundalini awakening. That sounds like what you experienced. And I said, "Oh my God, yeah, Kundalini, that's what I experienced." So somehow for 2 weeks, I felt foolish that I somehow wasn't able to put the dots together. But that seems to be a common thing for many people. They put the pieces together in very interesting, synchronistic, perfectly timed ways.
mhm,
So you're asking who was present during that rising experience. Well, it was my partner at the time
mm.
and her best friend.
Okay.
And being the more experienced psychedelic user at the time, I felt somewhat responsible for them to have a good trip and a good time.
Mhm,
So we were all there in the bedroom together. They went off to go get some water or something. So I was by myself now in this room, engaging in my I love you practice, feeling really good, really safe, really comfortable. And then I had an anxious thought, oh no, I hope they're okay. I need to make sure that everything is going well. I'm the more experienced tripper here, right? A bit of, you know, caretaker, people pleaser type tendency. Nonetheless, a voice said to me, Brent, whatever's taking care of you right now is taking care of them too. So just relax and go deep into the practice. And I trusted that voice fully. It was the voice of God. And so I said, okay. So I just let go of any anxiety and went fully into my practice, saying, I love you to every last atom cell in my system. And that's when this energetic rising took place.
mm.
So I feel that it was all synchronistically set up for them to vacate the room, for me to have this experience.
Yeah.
And when they came back in the room, I didn't know if it was them who came in the room or if I just walked in the room because the oneness experience that I was having was so complete. There was no sense of me being here. I was one with everything. It was a really fascinating experience. And so we went from that place of being totally in alignment, oneness, extreme love, connection with the divine, to suddenly all of that disappearing, and I'm just a complete wreck.
Mm.
Energetically, the relationship came to an end abruptly, which I was heartbroken. And I was so anxious at the time. I was working at a job. I quit the job on the spot. I didn't even tell them I was quitting. I just walked out and just stopped answering their phone calls when they were asking me where I was. It was so disrupting in every dimension. And
Yeah.
so from there, for the next 2 weeks, I was just a mess. And then eventually, when I got this word Kundalini, I started to put the pieces together and I started to understand, okay, this is what all of the spiritual teachers that I've been listening to have experienced. Ramana Maharshi experienced a Kundalini awakening. They don't talk about it much when they talk about Neo-Advaita non-duality. They
Yeah.
don't talk about his Kundalini awakening, but he had a Kundalini awakening. It's there in his story. All of these different all of the origins of these great spiritual teachings, they seem to have some energetic component, which was just overlooked in a lot of the things that I was exploring. So anyway, now I began to understand, okay, there's going to be a period of purging and purification. Cleansing is going to arise. All of the stuff that I've been carrying in my body, in my shadow, in my chakras, in my muscles, in my nervous system, it's going to come up to be released. I said, okay. Well, fortunately, I had my I love you practice, which by the way, I learned from a teacher named Matt Kahn, also a Kundalini experiencer. He's a brilliant teacher.
Yeah.
So this I love you practices, I said, okay, that's what awakened this energy and that's what I'll continue to do. So I just sat in my room and I just said, no matter what arises here, I will say I love you to it and allow it to be healed, released, dissolved in the light of my love. And so for the next 6 weeks, that's what I did. And all sorts of dark things came up. I was vomiting, crying every day, just spazzing out, twitching, all sorts of movements and kriyas and leaving my body and having encounters with deities and entities and demon stuff. The dreams were like just so violent and crazy. It was just nonstop phenomena and releasing and purging. Well, I shouldn't say nonstop. There were brief periods, an hour, an evening, a
Mhm.
morning, where I felt immense peace, bliss, connectedness, connection, relief, lightness in my body. So I started to note these experiences and I said, every time I have a release of something uncomfortable, it's followed by some period of deep peace.
Yeah.
I think I'm actually healing here. I'm not being victimized. Nothing is going wrong here. My body is releasing things that I've been carrying this whole time. So past life stuff was coming up and all sorts of things. And on the heels of this romantic breakup, I had a wounded heart. And so I had to look at all of the shadow around wanting someone else to fulfill me and feeling worthy and all of those attachment wounds and stuff was all coming up to be seen in the light of my awareness at this time. And eventually, after the 6 weeks, it got a little lighter. I began to have days where I was peaceful, calm, quiet. Then those days maybe turned into a weekend of intense purging again.
Hmm.
But eventually, what I found was like a telescope, the periods of peace and relief uh, began to become more prominent, and the periods of intense purification began to become more infrequent and shorter.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, I understand what's happening here. So for the next 6 months, that's basically the trend. The latter 6 months, things got a lot easier, a lot more comfortable. I would go for months at a time without an intense purging and release. And eventually I came out and I said, I think I'm out of that intense period. I think I'm out of that dark night of the soul or that period of purging and purification. I feel stable. What do I do with my life now? That was the question, right? Being young, early 20s, immense creativity came online. I wanted to create art. I picked up the camera, became a photographer through the flow, which was never anything I would have imagined prior to this experience.
So just
Um,
shortly that I have a timeline. How old were you? So how long ago was it that it got activated?
so that major awakening took place in 2015, so 10 years. Yeah,
Okay.
just shy of a month of 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's been ongoing integration ever since. I tell people, if they hear now, they're hearing a decade of integration. Yeah, but not a decade of intense suffering. It's
Hmm.
been quite manageable. There have been periods, of course, where there's been intensity that's come and gone, relating to health, relating to relationships, relating to purpose, existential stuff. But it hasn't been like that initial 6 weeks. That was pure hell. Um, since then, I feel like I've gotten on board with the process. I get what's happening here.
Yeah.
Nothing lasts forever. It's
Yeah.
coming up to be healed and released to make more space for more peace and love to flow. That's great. I'm on board with that.
Yeah. And do you have an explanation for why you fell into that 6 weeks of really heavy dark night of the soul? Was it because of the relationship that ended and you didn't come out of that hole, and so everything went like down?
Yeah,
Or
I think it's a combination of a few things. When I look at my overall disposition and personality, I think, they have this idea that, we decide our spiritual path prior to coming into this life. I know I would have chosen the let's make a mess and clean up afterwards because that'll be more intense and faster. then let's clean up and then have a gradual awakening that's gentle. My personality, I'd say let's go for the more intense one. And so I think that's what I did, where I
Yeah.
said, I'll just dive right in, engage really intensely in spiritual practices, no teacher, no guru, no preparation,
Mm.
no tradition. I'll
Yeah.
just do psychedelics and I'll do this intense spiritual practices on the psychedelics. And then I'll have a major awakening and have to figure it out after the fact. So I
Yeah.
think that's what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, same for me. Sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas other people have a very gradual, gentle process. They hear stories of vomiting and crying and dark night of the soul, and they're like, I never had any of that. It's probably because they practiced and did their shadow work gently over a long period of time prior. And I think that's a more responsible way of doing it, rather than diving into all these practices really intensely, prematurely in a sense. So I would say I had a premature awakening and did the maturing after, whereas many people will do the maturing before. They'll prepare their body, prepare their system. They'll have resources in place.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the awakening happens. It's much more gentle, much more gentle.
Hmm. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's a bit the same like when you take psychedelics and you don't have a good diet before, or
Yeah.
it's gonna be a ride.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And through that, I got a lot of data to help support other people going through such intense crises as well. If I had a more gentle awakening process, I wouldn't be able to do the work I'm doing now because I meet with so many people that like me, are exploring psychedelics or intense breath work or yoga practice, meditation practices, and they're having these abrupt awakenings, and nobody understands. And I can say, "Oh yeah, I understand," because that's what happened to me. And I can also do my best to inspire them by saying, "Hey, I'm feeling okay now. I'm feeling pretty good. Life's good. Things are going well. You'll get there too. It just takes some time."
Yeah. So what do you think helped you the most to come out of it? Like really practicing, not stopping to practice this self-love practice. And also, what about surrender? What were your
Yeah.
teachings about surrendering to the process?
Yeah, yeah. So the self-love practice has been by far the most powerful practice that I've ever discovered. And I continue to practice that to this day. It's been 10 years. So that's a big piece that got me through anything. On top of that, there was this element of surrender. So I began to discover that Kundalini Shakti, it's called Shakti because it's the feminine, the divine feminine component of consciousness, the power of consciousness. And so as I began to explore, I saw people describing the Shakti as intelligent, that
Mm.
this is an intelligent, energetic force that facilitates the awakening process. So if I said, okay, if it's intelligent, hmm,
Yeah.
that seems like something I can relate with. I can talk to it. I can ask it for guidance. I can let it know how I'm feeling and it will respond. Maybe not instantly,
Mm.
but through some form. Either sometimes it is instantly, sometimes I may hear a voice or some phenomenon in my body or a dream, or through a synchronicity, I may find my way to the right video or book or conversation. I said, this intelligence is not just within my body. Kundalini Shakti is just within my body. That's Kundalini. But Shakti is all of the universe. That's the presence of God, the infinite intelligence of God. And I said, I see your hand in my life. I see your intelligence moving within my system. You know far more than my ego mind as Brent. I don't know anything. I'm just, a fool. I said, okay, why don't I surrender to this higher force that seems to be taking care of things quite well for me? Why don't I just hand over the reins and let her, I'll say her, she, the divine mother within Kundalini Shakti, let her just lead the way.
Mhm.
And so I said, metaphors and things would come to me, and one of them was that I can be a co-pilot, a collaborator, but not the main pilot, not a passenger who just sits back and does nothing, but a co-pilot. So I take instruction, guidance, and I engage with that way as a collaborator. But ultimately, she's running the show here. I'm just now and then I do a little bit here and there to maintain the environment within which she operates.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally resonate with that, especially But that's the trick also for me. The integration process was a lot about finding out, because I wanted for a long time, I wanted to just have the seat in the passenger seat behind, because I was like, okay, when you know better, then do. But that's not how it works. You cannot be passive and she's going to show you the way. It's really an interaction, and you have to come into action. She will let you know if it's the right way, but yeah, it still stays trial and error. It's not like she's going to make it everything easy. And that
Yeah.
was difficult for me, because I tried to bypass and came into a very passive way of, okay, I thought that's surrender, but that's not.
Yeah. 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 That's
So
a
that's why
big,
I'm interested in what is surrender, for you, and also talk a little bit, um, like when you say, what was the biggest struggle for you? Like also when it comes to, you talked about having encounters with demons.
yeah.
So how was that? Yeah, being confronted with realms we normally don't experience, and how to integrate that. And also, I would be appreciate if you let us know how you managed the surrounding, like your family and
Mm,
friends, how uh, how you felt when you couldn't talk about it, or how it was when they didn't appreciate what you were talking about. So,
right. Okay. Yeah. So surrender, demons, and family. Yeah, we can
sorry, it was.
no, that's good. I like all these three themes. Thank you. Yeah, I can ramble on some of these. Yeah, so surrender, I found it was surrender of the idea that I'm in control here to something that's much better at controlling. Um, but not in a passive way like you're sharing there, right? We can be the co-pilot. And what I find as a co-pilot, our job is mainly to just take care of this body, this system.
Mm,
The details will fill in by the pilot. Our job is to maintain the aircraft,
mm,
in a sense. So we can't just sit on our couch because that's not good. We have to move, we have to eat, we have to socialize, we have to tidy up. Um, and so those are the things that we have to do. And then when we're doing that, we get inspiration. Go here, go there, and suddenly life, Shakti will fill in the blanks, and suddenly our life gets pretty exciting. Invitations, opportunities, inspiration begins to come. So that's what I've found with surrender. I also found that my path is entirely a relational path. It's a relationship. So you described like trial and error. I think that's what this is we have to learn how to relate, or we deepen the relationship with the divine mother, with Shakti, with our higher self, with Kundalini, whatever language you would like to use. And like any relationship, it doesn't just on day one, you have full trust and understanding of each other. It deepens over time. So this is a real relationship with God, which unfolds over time. And it involves trial and error and initiations and experiences to build trust. So we go through something difficult, it works out, and we say, I think I can trust God. In the same way that if you have a relationship with a friend and you go through something difficult and things go well, you say, we went through something. I can trust them, right? They've shown me their character. They've shown me that they got my back. So it's like that. It's an ongoing thing. And so sometimes people will beat themselves up. Why can't I surrender? I want to surrender. I know I need to surrender, but I can't. It's like, of course you can. This is still fresh, early stage of the relationship, right? Yeah,
yeah.
it takes time. It takes time. Our nervous system has to feel safe enough to surrender, and I'm convinced that God knows that as well.
Mm,
God knows how scary it is for us to surrender to God and trust God. God understands. God understands. There's deep compassion there.
mm.
Yeah. On the topic of entities, demons, these types of things, very frightening topic for many people who haven't experienced it. It can scare them. They say, "Oh, I may experience demons. That's scary. I don't want anything to do with spirituality or Kundalini or whatever." For those who may be in experiencing things like this as well, very frightening as well. But I'll lead by saying it's very common. If you look at many of the stories of all the great spiritual masters and whatnot, they have some element of an encounter with the darkness in some way, right? This there in Christ's story, the Buddha as well, right? So if you're encountering darkness, demons, things like this, you can know you're walking the real path that the masters have walked. So you're still on the map, which is good. There's different ways of thinking about it. Some may look at it as entities, demons come from the outside. These energetic presences that exist in the non-physical realms come to sabotage the awakening that may be unfolding in you. That could be one intention. Um, some other perspectives are those presences, those energies are just operating at such a low vibration. They're very, very low on the totem pole of all of the different beings. And so like all beings in existence are on a spiritual journey towards oneness and towards the light. They are as well. So when you are radiating immense light as you go through your awakening, sometimes these quote unquote demons may be attracted to you. You're like a beacon. Except when they show up to you, they are so low vibrational, they don't have any manners. So they're very impolite. They scare you, they snarl at you, they whisper things to you, whatever it is. That's all that they know. And so if we look at it like that, we say, here is another being on their spiritual journey. They seem to have come to me, either to sabotage my awakening or they just don't have manners and they're looking for the light. But nonetheless, I'll take the higher road and I'll see them as an aspect of the divine because the divine is all that there is here. So we can say, I see you, I love you. And then we remember our boundaries and say, but you cannot be here. I'm doing important work. Be gone. And if you speak with confidence, they can't live in that energy field, that light. So they may say, this one remembered the light. Darn, we can't sabotage them. And they'll go on their way. Those that are looking for the light, if they're the ones that are coming to you, you offer them love and light as you see them, and then you say, now be gone, be on your way. I wish you all the best on your journey, but you can't be here with me. You've now inspired them. You've given them a taste of love. You've given them a taste of the light. So they're like, wow, that feels amazing. I need to find more of that. So now you've leveled them up on their spiritual journey, and now they'll continue on their way. And so that's a great gift that you're giving to them. So this is what I would do. I didn't, not initially. In the beginning, I was getting scared. And then I started
That
to
was
catch
in
on.
dreams, or was it when you were like astral?
Yeah, both. There were some dreams where these like very obvious demonic presences would show up and hiss and scream and things like this. And I would wake up scared. Sometimes they were also like kind of in the astral as well, a little. It felt like I was amongst the presence of various energies.
Hmm.
Eventually I remembered why they're coming. I remembered that if they're scaring you, I got this message that came to me was they're coming to scare the fear out of you. So they trigger fear. Thank you so much. You've triggered fear in me. Let me face this. I'll love the fear. So suddenly I just like flipped the script on them where it was like, you're helping me. Thank you so much. Oh, this is great. And this is how we can just move out of being victimized by this sort of thing. It's very empowering take. So there was some dream, like I had one dream, for example, where there was just a lineup of like really dark beings that went from my bedroom door down the hall from my house into the street and down the street. So they were all just lining up to come in my room.
Hmm.
And so when I woke up, I got the message, I need some sort of boundaries. Okay, so I started to work on this idea of energetic boundaries and saying this is my space and they're not welcome here. They're looking for something, and I can appreciate that. They're on their search, their journey. That's good, but no, I don't have it for you right now in the middle of something. So anyway, then the dreams shifted where they would start knocking on the door, and I would open the door and say, "I'll meet you in the street, but you're not coming into my home." So there was shifts happening. Then eventually I said, I'm the light. It's physics. The light dispels the darkness. I don't need to do anything, just existing as the light, there's no darkness. So it's not a practice or anything, it's just who I am. So remembering deeply, I'm the light, remembering who you are, then
Yeah.
you can't be moved by these beings, these demons and whatnot. They're only able to have power over you if you forget who you are. The moment you remember, they say, ah, this one remembers. Okay, let's go on our way. And they
Beautiful.
leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, then you don't have to do anything anymore. But it's interesting what you said about that they are here to help
Yeah.
because it was my experience where I had really in December when I had a very dark night of the soul, a hard one, a hard ride. I had a nightmare, which I never had any nightmares anymore since childhood. But there I had one, and then these demons came in. They were really, as soon as I was falling asleep, they were waking me up again. So it was pure terror. They didn't want to let me sleep. And then one moment, one of these demons were they were pressing me because I started to sing because that's how I connect to the divine. When I use my voice, I can connect. So I was singing in the dream and he was pushing my body, and suddenly he asked me, now you still don't know um if you are connecting to something good or something bad. And he had so much fun with that because I stopped singing because I didn't know. Oh my God, I really don't know. But then the next day I went to a yoga practice and I was flexible like I was never before. So they were pushing out a lot of stuck energy out of my body. And then I knew, and I was just laughing in that yoga uh, Shala, because I knew, okay, they were helping me. They were pushing out a lot of fear out of my body. So I can relate a lot to seeing it like that. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, I love my whole thing is to have an empowered take
Mm-hmm.
on this whole journey, right? Especially with these themes, you have to find some way of how is this positive, even if it is like a demon, how is it somehow helpful? Well, they're scaring the fear out of you, they're reminding you who you are, they're giving you practice so you can stay grounded in the light. They're also training you to look for the silver lining, which is what you're describing here. It's incredible. I'm also thinking about I don't know the full connection, but even the term devil has that root, Devi, right? Which is, the deities, the positive, benevolent deities. So there's a connection there as well.
Lucifer, Lucifer is the bringing of light. I mean,
Hmm. Yeah. So this is what I feel like all of it serves a purpose here. Everything serves a purpose here to bring us to further on our journey. That's of course the process of alchemy and seeing these things that come to hurt us is actually somehow helping us in the big picture. So that was how I really was able to overcome a lot of those difficult themes. So the other element was, some would say, and I think this is a great take as well, is that some of these quote unquote entities, demons, devils, etc., aren't these beings from other realms. It's
mm-hmm.
some component of our self, our shadow, that has just been fragmented, that is now looking to be reintegrated back into our whole being. And so it presents to us in a dream as if it's someone else, but it's actually a part of ourself saying, hey, are you going to now accept me, see me, heal me, allow me to then resolve? Or are you going to keep denying me, suppressing me, ignoring me, and not seeing me as the part of you that I am? And so when we see those parts, we heal those parts, they resolve back into the light as well. So that's another take to
Mm-hmm.
look at it. It's not actually an energetic demon out there. It's just a part of ourselves that our psyche is so sophisticated that when we experience trauma, we don't know what to do with it, but that's one thing we can do with it is kind of just put it aside and keep going. But this process says no more putting things aside. All of the things that we may have put aside in the past, we're going to take a look at it and bring it back into the whole being once again. And that's what healing is, returning to wholeness.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. And so the last part I'm very interested in is how people reacted around you. How
Yeah.
did you feel lonely in the process, or did you have people who could help you and relate, or
Yeah. So it was interesting. I've got many, many great friends on the spiritual path, friendships spanning decades, that I was able to relate my experiences to, and I didn't feel so alone. There were people that would hear me, but they weren't necessarily going through it in the same intensity that I was. Many of them, I think, chose the more gentle route, which is, they would have a gradual awakening process. So some of those friends now are, very evolved, very advanced. They've gone through Kundalini awakening as well. So I had company in that sense, but I couldn't. I knew I had to keep this stuff to myself. That the average person, uh, unless I had a lot of rapport with them and they knew me, who I was, what I was about, I could trust them. Then I could talk to them. But just like somebody who I didn't have that type of rapport with, I knew better than to just start talking about this. So I would keep it to myself. And rather than once again making that into a victim story, and I understand that many people feel isolated and can't relate and they feel victimized. That's fine, but that's never been my way. So instead of making myself feel like a victim and lonely and I can't tell people about this stuff, I said, you know what? I will use this as context to integrate my awakening in a way where I don't need to tell anybody that I'm spiritual or awakened or I had this Kundalini or whatever. I want to show up and be in my heart and not use my past experiences to justify my spirituality, but actually use my present state of consciousness as the foundation of who I am. So I don't need to talk about this with anybody,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think a lot of people want recognition for their spirituality, their spiritual awakening. They're saying, I had X, Y, and Z experience in the past. Who cares? What state of consciousness are you in now? Are you in peace? Are you in your heart? Do you feel connected? Are you in a state of trust? Because if you're not, then it doesn't matter what happened to you in the past. So that was a challenge that I gave myself. Can I be the best version of myself without having to rely on my Kundalini awakening story to justify my so-called enlightenment or awakenedness or whatever it is? So that's the challenge I gave myself. As well, I said, I have the internet available to me. Maybe the people in my life don't want to hear this, don't understand. They will call me crazy and whatnot. I said, okay, in my life, I'll operate incognito. I'll just be Brent, the photographer, does this thing, hangs out with his friends, watches Netflix, meditates alone quietly. But on the internet, there's so many people around the world that are going through this. Why don't I put myself out there and start some conversations about it? So that's how I kind of overcame any feeling of isolation or loneliness. If it was there, was I can have conversations on the internet, and I can feel safe. I trust the algorithm to prevent the stuff from prevent my material from finding the wrong person and to find the right people. And so that was how I just, took an empowered stance. That's what I tell people too, because I hear a lot of people, they say, my family doesn't understand, my friends don't understand. I want to be heard. I say, okay, you can write on the internet, you can do a podcast, you can record conversations, and there's so many people that are longing to have a conversation with you. So take advantage of it. I also saw, if I'm the so-called awakened one within my circle, my community, my family, whatever, I don't think it's on people in my life to accommodate me and to hear me and to console me and say nice things to me just because I've had some spiritual awakening. If I've had a spiritual awakening, I think that means that if I'm claiming that I had a spiritual awakening, I think that burden is on me to better accommodate the people in my life
Mm-hmm.
rather than expecting them to accommodate me, right? So I just flipped the whole script, right? If I'm walking around saying I had a profound spiritual awakening and I'm expanding my heart and going to higher levels of consciousness than all of you, well, I think that means that I should show up for them a little better, right? And so I never took a victim stance on that. And though, like I said, I'll just repeat, like, I understand. We're here to connect. We're human social beings. Connection, acceptance, being seen, being heard is so important, so important. And it's heartbreaking when the people in our life dismiss us, label us, call us crazy. I've experienced that as well. I know. But taking a victim role just doesn't help. So we have to somehow spin that. How can I empower myself given my circumstances? And so you can make it a challenge for yourself. You know, to live your spirituality without talking about it. And interestingly, when you do that, the right people that can hear you, see you, relate with you, they start to show up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nice. Yeah. Yeah. There has to be discernment with who you are talking about, and it's okay. But it's the struggle is there at the like I had it especially with a good friend of mine who I thought she knows me inside out. So when she didn't react well, I felt very abandoned and like an eye opener that this person then doesn't know me because I wouldn't talk bullshit.
Yeah.
And, that 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 is hard. But yeah, I think, and what also happened to me actually is that I just lately I recognized that I have a shaman friend, and I told her about my experience like maybe a half a year ago, and we had a good conversation about it. And I saw her this weekend, and then we were, I was talking about it again with her, and then she told me, "You never told me that." So I understood. It's funny because people they sometimes they only hear what they are ready for. So the conversation just went off for her again, and that's also interesting. So it really depends with who you talk, if they are open to it, and sometimes they really they don't want to hurt you, but they have to dismiss it
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's not in their plan. It's really not, and you're going to mess with their plan. They are in their dharma perfectly, but you want to, it's not like they have to level up to you have to understand that maybe they are even better already rooted in their dharma. So it's not up to you to tell them you should be here where I am and you should understand me. And that's the way it's a level up because they might be perfectly doing what they have to do. So
Yeah. Yeah, well said. Yeah, yeah, it's exactly that. And of course, we want to share and relate and whatnot, but when people dismiss us, I think we have to also have some empathy for them. Like we're saying some things that are really out of the ordinary and they're
right.
frightening, right? And
Yeah.
they may even trust you, but on some level they're like, I don't have the energy or the time to entertain this right now. I'm just trying to survive, right?
Absolutely.
And so they're like, they have to dismiss you just because it could be a lot existentially for them as well to really contemplate what you're sharing. Yeah. I always think about the quote from the Bible, which says, no one can be a prophet in their own hometown. And it's a known challenge, right? The people that we grew up with and that know us from prior to any of this often will just see us as the version of us that they knew originally. It's too much for them to say, oh, suddenly you came out of nowhere and you're talking about, really far out stuff. You're a prophet now. They'll dismiss you. And it's a known thing. So
Mhm.
that's what I'm saying. You can go on the internet and you can find the people that will hear you, as you've done and as I've done. And I think we need more conversations like this. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a tough challenge though, for sure.
Yeah. Beautiful. So, what what's the last thing you would like the listeners to know? Something you really would like to share from the heart? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important that we really lean into our humanity as we go through this process. So I know on your channel, Awakening Stories, some may hear story and say, don't we awaken out of our story? Why are these people telling stories? There is no story. No, no. We're human, right? The most captivating thing of our existence is our stories, right?
Mm.
That's why we love movies. We love telling stories. Like these are the oldest things that we've got, right? And I think that's what really makes us human and brings us into the body where we feel something emotionally that gets evoked by our stories. And so
Mm.
I guess my invitation is for any anyone who may be caught up in any of those paradigms like I was, where
Yeah, yeah.
I left my body and I was stuck in the void.
Hmm.
And part of the challenging thing there was feeling like I don't exist, feeling like the past never existed, that there was no me here, no I here, no story here, and that's where I got really stuck.
Yeah.
Um, and so I just like I love how you've set up your channel here and you're framed your work here to really highlight that yes, we are telling stories, and it's through these stories that we hear a piece that we can take and integrate into our story, a piece from someone else's journey. What did they do? What did they say? Ah, they describe an experience that I've had, and I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know there was language around this. So that's why we tell stories. It's how we connect. And I'm just like, I feel like just leaning into that and remembering, we came here for a story. We came out of emptiness into this place to have a story.
Yeah.
And stories have drama,
Yeah.
and drama is difficult,
Yeah,
right?
actually, to understand that we are responsible how we tell this story on this planet, we are together in the collective. We are responsible for this. So to not be aware of that is spiritual bypassing for me. And I mean, but it also comes with a kind of conditioning. A lot of the teachings we have in Western society is the Kundalini going up,
Yeah.
and it's not a lot talked about the Kundalini, which also has to come down. So, and a lot of people they want to go out of balance by fleeing out into
Mhm.
the non-dual state, but that's not the truth.
Yeah.
It's one side of the coin, but
Yeah.
which is paradox when I say that when we're talking about non-duality. But
Yeah.
let's be honest, we are here to move a story on this planet, and if we are responsible for it. So it's beautiful to take the teachings of non-duality, but let's do the work here. And
Yeah. Yeah. And I think real non-duality, true non-duality isn't the detached state. It's the merger between emptiness and form. And
exactly.
that exists in the heart here, where you can be simultaneously everywhere, nowhere, fully human, fully divine. Um, you understand that there's no one here, there's no self, and yet there is someone here that needs to be honored, called your name. And somehow finding the balance there, paradoxically, that's real non-duality. And if there's something missing within your non-duality, then it's not non-duality. Non-duality contains it all, including the story, including the drama, including the ups and downs and the chaos, the pain, all of the darkness, the light, the demons, all of that makes for a damn good story. And you can imagine a story that didn't have any of that. It'd be kind of boring. And so
Yeah,
that's like an empowered take that I've, done my best to look at my life as. It's an exciting story here.
exactly. And my practice at the moment is to um, but to also learn to try not to be the storyteller, but let the story be told through me.
Beautiful.
It's like
Yeah.
let the story that wants to be told unfold through, and let me be a good channel for how the divine would like to experience the world. It's a bit of stepping aside and letting the divine um, riding through this experience, and I am honored to watch, to be the eyes for it and the voice and everything. So
Hmm. Wow, that's beautiful. I'm gonna take that and apply that. What
mm,
comes to me is the question, what would God want to experience through me today?
exactly. Yeah, right. And then
Thank
woo,
you.
let's go.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me see the world through your eyes, how you want to see it.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah. So let's come to an end, and let's pick it up someday again when we have a lot. We will have a lot of fuel.
Yeah.
So, but thank you very, very much for connecting and sharing your story. And when people would like to have more, or when questions are coming up now after hearing Brent's story, please leave some comments and also share your story in the comments. It's so beautiful. It's not us who just want to share this story. You maybe have a lot to say, so please do so. Feel free to do so, and we are happy to read your stories, your inputs, and also answering questions when there are, right, Brent?
Yes. Yeah. Of
So
course.
thank you very much for
Mhm.
now, and let's keep in touch.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Much love.
Bye.